Sugar.
Broadcasting live from the KSHP studios in the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada. It's time to get on the right side of sports betting. It's time for the Odds Couple.
Welcome to the Odds Couple. This show is about sports betting. My name is Scott Pritchard, a professional sports bettor handicapper, joined as always by Brett Grant. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. How are you, Scott?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Exciting day in the world of sports. We'll be talking sports betting, recapping last night's NBA basketball action, previewing today's action, talk some Major League Baseball. We're going to get started with What Say You? The zigzag theory, alive and well. We talked about it yesterday in the first round of the playoffs. First of all, the zigzag theory has to do with, in a 7-game series, if you look at what happens in game 1, knowing that these are professional basketball players, whichever team wins game 1, zig, you zag in the second game, knowing that professional athletes, coaches will adjust accordingly, okay? And they will come out with a more inspired effort. Doesn't mean they're going to win the game, but ATS against the spread, for years it has been documented a winning proposition. In the first round of the playoffs, we talked about it before Game 2s, and it was 7-1. Yesterday, with the Grizzlies playing Game 2 against the Thunder after losing Game 1, we thought there would be some value, plus the points, plus 3.5, 3, 2.5, 2 is what the line closed. The sportsbooks will shade it that way because they're certainly aware, but still 2-0 last night with the Grizzlies winning the game straight up, and the Knicks also winning by more than the 6-point spread after losing Game 1.
Knicks had a huge fourth quarter, great defensive fourth quarter as well against Indiana, and blew them out, 109 to 105-79, I think it was. The other game much closer, but Memphis got the straight-up win on the road. So, 2-0 yesterday. That's 9-1 in the Game 2s so far. Now let me ask you, does it apply to Game 3 moving forward?
It does,
okay.
And in fact, it gets to be kind of a cluster, somewhat of a jigsaw puzzle. So again, tread carefully, buyer beware. Okay. And as I said before, Brett, it's one more tool in your arsenal when it comes to handicapping sports and betting. This is the Odds Couple, a show on sports betting. My name is Scott Pritchard, a professional sports bettor handicapper, featured on my site, pritchardspicks.com, vegasinsider.com, refpicks.com, Tim Donaghy's site. GM of KSHP, Brett Grant, is my co-host tomorrow. Exciting news, my good buddy, colleague, friend, Dink, featured in the movie Lay the Favorite, starring Bruce Willis as Dink, will be here with us from 10 until 11 o'clock talking sports betting. His expertise is in hockey. I know you're excited about that.
Yeah, we had the nice hockey games yesterday. We had our first sweep yesterday as San Jose took care of Vancouver. We have the bloodbath between Montreal and Ottawa continuing, and we have old-fashioned 1980s-style hockey with the Islanders and the Penguins. Every time somebody touches the puck, it's in the other team's net, so which is exciting. You're getting lots of goals in one series, you're getting lots of violence in another, and you're getting some great hockey in another. So some good series going on.
Now, for you, Brett, when you bet hockey, do you look at the first period, side, total, puck line? Do you look at the total for the game, the money line?
A little bit of everything. Last night I played one game last night, which was the Blackhawks. They were a favorite on the road, but it was a spot where I think the Blackhawks are going to go to the Stanley Cup Finals out of the Western Conference, and they had lost in overtime the game before, and I thought it was a good spot for them to win Game 4, and they did 3-0 yesterday. So that was the one game I played yesterday. When it comes to Pittsburgh, in the Islanders series, with the exception of the first game, I think every other game in that series has gone way over the total. 9 goals in the game yesterday. Very little defense, tons of goal scoring, and that the totals are still 5.5. We haven't seen a 6 yet, so I think there's still a lot of value in that series. The Blues and the Kings, who play Game 5 tonight, the last game in that series, in fact, the last 2 games total was 4.5. Now, the one game ended up a 1-0 game, but I played over the 4.5 in Game 2. It ended up being a 4-3 win for the LA Kings. The first game in that series, ironically, that went over the total. But I just thought, you're going to give me 4.5 at some point here. I'm going to have to go over that total, and it worked out in Game 4.
Studio line is open. Keep those questions coming. You want to talk sports betting, the number is 702-221-7283. That's 221-7283. Live chat up and running on Vegas Video Network. Very excited. How cool is this, man? Radio Live, Las Vegas, entertainment gambling capital of the world, but we're live and worldwide with Vegas Video Network.
I think we need a wardrobe budget, though. If we're going to be on TV every day, I need some more shirts. Scott, can you help us out over here?
I'm running out of, yeah, exactly.
I mean, for radio, it's always had the ball cap on. I can wear a T-shirt. I didn't have to shave. Now I have landscaping duties, like manscaping duties. I have Scott stay and play the violin for him.
He doesn't want to hear it.
He doesn't want to hear it. Yeah, I need some help with that. Yeah, now we got dry cleaning issues going. I got all kinds of things going on.
So many things to talk about today on the Odds Couple. We've teased you a little bit with some pro basketball, the NBA playoffs alive and well. Very, very exciting. Every game, every play is magnified. No room for error. The zigzag theory, as we mentioned, alive and well. Just to recap what took place last night, the Knicks came on like a house on fire. They were upset. They were hungry. They were embarrassed on their home court against a very good Pacer team. But last night, Carmelo Anthony was the man.
Well, he's got to be the man for them to be able to win the series and for them to be able to advance. I still think Indiana might be the better team, and I look at this matchup kind of similarly to what we saw maybe in the Nets and the Bulls series, where you knew the Bulls were going to bring their defense every night. I know that the Pacers are going to bring me that kind of energy defensively every night, and the Knicks are, like the Nets, a sporadic team when it comes to defense, and they'll have off shooting nights, and I think Indiana is more of a whole team, and while it might be a 7-game series, I think Indiana will eventually wear down and beat the New York Knicks.
Well, it's a good observation, Brett, on your part, because as a professional sports bettor, I do not like randomness. There are plenty of things that are random, even when you have everything figured out. But I love teams like the Pacers, the Bulls, the Grizzlies, because I know what I'm going to get. They're going to bring the energy, the effort. It's a knockdown, slow down, let's play in mud type affair. And they're very consistent that way. Last night, defensively, you might say that they let their guard down, but again, I'm not so sure. What happened was they could not make shots. That led to transition baskets the other way for the Knicks.
Yeah, they had a bad fourth quarter. I mean, the game was not necessarily out of reach for them starting the fourth quarter. They just had a horrible fourth quarter, got outscored by 20 points in the fourth quarter, and they end up losing the game by, 26? So you're down 6 entering the quarter. You're basically right on the number, which was 6, right, going into the game. Right. And they just had a bad fourth quarter. You're right. They couldn't throw it in the ocean from a boat in the middle of it, and they just had a bad night shooting. Shot 45%, but they probably shot, I'm not sure what the number was in the fourth quarter, but it wasn't 45% in the fourth quarter. It was well below that.
Now, as we prepare for Game 3, the Knicks on the road taking on the Pacers. Pacers did what they wanted to do. They went on the road. They got the split, 1-1. So they've stolen home court advantage away from the Knicks.
Right.
And moving forward, the Knicks have now Amar'e Stoudemire is likely to play in Game 3.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. He'll certainly help them from a rebounding standpoint. The other big difference last night was the turnover margin was huge in favor of the Knicks. I mean, 21-6. And you get a lot of points off of turnovers when you get that. But bringing Stoudemire back in, I think, will be important for the Knicks from the standpoint of rebounding. If he goes out and he tries to score too much and tries to do too much offensively, then I think it can be a detriment. But if he just plays defense, gets on the glass offensively and defensively, then I think he'll be an asset to the Knicks. But that's not Amar'e Stoudemire's game necessarily.
Well, rebounding, maybe, okay, offensively, maybe, but he's certainly not known for defense. No one has ever accused him of playing defense. I think he's been in the league something like 10, 11 years, and this year, if I remember right, he said, no one has ever really taught me how to play defense. It's like, are you kidding me? All right, you're a $100 million man. Hire someone. Show me how to play defense.
It's like a Major League Baseball player saying, no one ever showed me how to take a leadoff. Right? No one's ever coached you on defense.
Well, I think in his defense, it goes back to if you have the talent and you've got game and you go right out of high school into the NBA like some of these players, or you have just 1 year of college, you lack the fundamental skills. I mean, So, I mean, but he's not off the hook because it's like, okay, I might buy that argument the first year or two in the league, but it's like instead of whining about it, how about finding a coach?
Right.
I mean, a lot of these players.
Well, he doesn't have to. He's still getting big paychecks by not having to play defense.
It's true.
He's still being enabled in that regard.
As far as talent, this guy is locked and loaded. But what's interesting, Knicks fans, is the fact that, and I don't know how to explain this, because when Amar'e Stoudemire is in the lineup, this team has been a money burner. When he's not in the lineup, they've been a money earner. And it's illogical. It's counterintuitive. Sometimes the less you know, the more you know.
Right.
They've been very good against the number when Stoudemire is not in the lineup. I think because the odds makers maybe overlay his value, and the trend has been, as far as cashing tickets, go against when Stoudemire's in the lineup.
Do we know for sure if he'll play in Game 3 yet? And do we know what the line is right now versus what it would be with him or without him in the lineup?
Well, again, what I would say to sports bettors is certainly check and see. The concern is, I mean, it's likely he's going to play. But then you have to ask yourself two questions. One, how much will he play, and how effective will he be?
Right.
It's kind of like, David Lee for the Golden State Warriors. I mean, he was probable, didn't play the other night, Game 6, deciding game against the Nuggets. He played a minute and a half, 0 for 1 shooting, 1 rebound. It was more of an emotional lift for the team, if you will, if there is such a thing. I don't know if I'm buying into that. If you have to rely on a cheerleader player to be introduced and into the game, maybe you should be focusing more on playing defense and getting to the free throw line.
No, that's true. But I think, that might have been a thing for Mark Jackson to look at and say, let's see what he can do. And let's take a look at him in that minute or two and see if we can use him in the next series. And we'll find out if we see him tonight or later on in the series or not. Obviously, he'd be a huge addition to get them back.
No doubt. Let's take a look now at the Western Conference semis with the Memphis Grizzlies on the road last night taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder. And sports bettors, to kind of recap what we're looking at here, going into the series, Oklahoma City, the number 1 seed, taking on a number 5 seed, Memphis. They knocked off the Clippers after losing the first 2 games. They came back to win 4 consecutive games. This team, I've said it all year, they're made for the playoffs. I've also said the Memphis Grizzlies are a bit of a fraud simply because they have no bench. They traded away their bench. They traded away their best player. I love their starting 5. I like Lionel Hollins, their coach, but in terms of heart, passion, desire, how do you not love this Memphis Grizzlies team? Tayshaun Prince came in to replace Rudy Gay, and everyone was dogging the organization for bringing in Prince, who was past it. But the guy is a wily, proven veteran, no ego. He fits in extremely well. Gay, as good as he was, he would shoot the team out of games as much as he would shoot them into games. But I love how the cohesiveness of the starting 5 for the Grizzlies, they bring it. Night in, night out, home and away, doesn't matter. They get it done.
Well, the thing you worry about with the Grizzlies is the fact that they don't have a bench, and they have to rely on those top 6, 7 guys as much as they do. They can't go deep, and we know Oklahoma City is wounded without Russell Westbrook in there as well, so obviously not the same basketball team. But if something happened to Memphis, to one of those big 5 guys, they're in trouble because they don't have a lot of guys they can go in off the bench. Conley was terrific yesterday. Randolph brings it every night, as you mentioned. Gasol. They had a possession that lasted it seemed like about an eternity last night. 2 or 3 or 4 offensive rebounds, running the clock down, taking a shot, fighting for the rebound, kicking it back out, running 20 more seconds off the clock, missing a shot, getting the rebound, doing it again. Finally, they got a basket. And when you make a team play defense that was at least 90 seconds, wasn't it? I mean, at least 90 seconds before Pondexter got the basket in that spot. And that's the thing that Memphis brings you. They might be lacking in areas in talent, but they're certainly not lacking in desire and determination.
One of my favorite players on that team, I actually love all the players. Zach Randolph brings it, the lefty, low post player. Marc Gasol, very good defensive player. I think he's a bit soft in the post, but he's a dead-eye shot from, say, 15 to 18 feet out. And then, but my favorite player probably would be Tony Allen, because this guy, you never hear about him, but he is a defensive star. He was the one responsible, even though he's giving up a lot of inches in height to Kevin Durant. He was the one in the last couple of minutes that was assigned to stop Kevin Durant. He did a great job. This guy brings it each and every night. He's one of the best defensive players I've ever seen.
Well, the interesting thing, you look at last night's game, number one, the Thunder turn it over, I think 29th most times in the league, from the standpoint of most turnovers, where Memphis on the other side forces turnovers as well as anybody in the league, and it led to 29 points off of turnovers last night for the Grizzlies. And they capitalized on that, and they also made sure that they didn't care. They did not care if Derek Fisher or anybody else was taking 3-point shots last night. They didn't care. They just wanted to make sure it wasn't Kevin Durant.
Right.
And if it was Durant was 3 of 9, I think it was.
Right.
Otherwise, go ahead, have that wide open 3-point shot. We don't care. It's not going to be 35 who beats us.
Well, I like that assessment, Brett, because again, 5 beats 1 every day of the week and twice on Sunday. And Durant, as good as he is, last night, 36 points. It kind of reminds me of the old days when Chicago, the Bulls led by Michael Jordan, he'd have 40, 45, 50 points, but they'd lose by 10. So you're seeing this now, and I understand he has an increased workload because the second best player on that team, Russell Westbrook, is out for the entire playoff. So it's tough. But I'm not a big Derek Fisher fan. The guy is so one-dimensional. He's a big-time liability on defense. I say this knowing that he's actually played pretty well the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. But to me, he's a fraud. We're talking about a guy who's past it. He's slow of foot. 2 things that he can do. He can knock down a 3, and he can knock down free throws. Why you would ever foul this clown is beyond me. The big thing is just guard the 3-point line. When's the last time Derek Fisher went to the basket and scored?
He doesn't.
He doesn't want to.
Last night, for example, there was a stat last night. The Grizzlies, on shots inside of 5 feet from the basket, outscored the Thunder 44-16.
Well, I'll take it to the next level. 44-16 is pretty impressive, but overall in the paint, on the road, the Grizzlies outscored the home team Thunder 48-30 in regards to attacking the paint. And as you said, 44-16, I think you said.
Yeah, from inside of 5 feet.
And that has to do with offensive rebound putbacks. Gasol is decent, but I'm talking Randolph is an animal offensive rebounder.
It also shows I'm shooting 20-foot jump shots. I'm not getting offensive rebounds and putbacks, number one, and we're not driving the ball to the basket. And the other interesting stat last night was Kevin Durant touched the ball 62 times, 69 times. In those 69 touches, he brought the ball over half court 32 times himself. So now you're asking him to basically be Magic Johnson. He's now your point forward, point guard. He's doing everything in that regard. So he's going to be tired by having to do more work. He's not receiving the ball. He's actually the guy bringing it up half the time. He's bringing it up the floor.
Well, it's interesting you say that because, again, he said after the game that in Game 1 they were down. He hit a couple of late shots. Last night had the same shots. He missed, and that will lend itself to fatigue. We saw it with Steph Curry a couple of nights ago for the Golden State Warriors, a guy who played something ridiculous like 58 minutes in a double overtime loss to the San Antonio Spurs. He scored 22 points in the third quarter, but 0 for 8 with jumpers late in the fourth and in the 2 overtimes.
Well, Kevin Durant now, since the Russell Westbrook injury, the Thunder are 3-3 when Durant brings the ball up more than 30 times a game. When he's the guy bringing it across the timeline, they're now 3-3.
Well, and in defense of Kevin Durant, as good as he is, without Westbrook, he's still averaging 35.5 points per contest. Very impressive, but again, they're behind the 8 ball. They're on the road now. They've lost home court advantage. The Memphis Grizzlies are the favorite to win this series. They were a small favorite going in. Actually, it opened, just so you know, and this goes back to respecting the marketplace. The Oklahoma City Thunder with home court taking on number 5. Yes, they're without Westbrook, meaning the Thunder, but they opened a small favorite. But the sportsbooks had no choice but to move it from a small favorite for the Thunder to a pick to where the Grizzlies were favored going in, because that's where all the money, the wise guys, Joe Public, for all intent and purpose, is not driving that number, and Joe Public is not tying up his money for a 2-week window. It's the wise guys who are looking for value, and then the Thunder won Game 1, so obviously with the 1-0 lead, 6 games to go potentially, they then were a small favorite. But today, 1-1, the Grizzlies accomplished what they wanted to do, which was a split in the first 2 games, so now they're about a $1.60 favorite to win that series.
Well, the interesting thing, according to Elias, 120 times so far in the NBA playoffs has the road team won Game 2, which happened last night. Game 3, when that team returns back home, they're 59-61 straight up.
So 50-50 prop.
Just about.
Interesting. Okay. And we know that if you're on it tells you that you're basically a road. You're a dog for the series more times than not. And
well,
yet you're a 50-50
that's
prop. If you've stolen one of the first two games, game 3, you're a 50-50 prop to. I'm trying to think what that statistic means.
Well, it's a good point because you're usually obviously you're the lower seeded team.
But the home team is almost always favored, or
and
at least
they're
the
mad
home
and they're
team.
going to come back and return the favor, so to speak.
Right.
The interesting thing is the line for Game 3 opened. I think Grizzlies 3.5, immediately bet up to 4.5. Where do you expect that line to be, or stay, or go to?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball. I do know that the Grizzlies...
Just on your head you do.
Yeah, that's true. It kind of looks like it, doesn't it? Thanks for bringing that up. I was just starting to... I'm afraid to look in the monitor.
Hey, Anthony hasn't even been here this week. You got at least through Friday.
I have to brace myself for
Friday,
my good buddy Anthony, who's here every Friday from 10A to 11A. But it's interesting. I mean, you always want to respect the move. You want to respect the money. FTM, follow the money. In business, it makes good business sense. Also, professional sports betting, the same thing. But there comes a time where points mean more than opinions, and you do not want to compromise value. So if you do like the Grizzlies, why would you lay 4.5 when you could have laid 3.5 24 hours ago? As far as where this line is going to go, my personal opinion, I would say it's probably going to continue to go up before it goes down, and it has to do with the fact that the Thunder, they're just flat out not the same team. I said before, 5 beats 1, and I just marvel. You know, you mentioned that. I mean, in the playoffs, you tighten the rotation. George Karl, 10-man rotation. Well, what did that get him? The Coach of the Year, actually. But that has to do with the regular season.
6 extra games.
Well, but he also blew it against the Golden State Warriors in the first round, which he's done for the last 30 years. So he's a good regular season coach. Coach of the Year is kind of a joke. I mean, 57 wins. But if you look at the Memphis Grizzlies taking on the Thunder interesting, isn't it? I mean, last night the Thunder, the number 1 seed, only a 2.5 point favorite, yet the Grizzlies seeded 5. Their home court, they've been bet up to 4.5.
Right.
So again, they're so tough at home, and 5 beat 1. But I want to get back to the rotation, because in the playoffs, instead of going with 8, 9, 10-man rotation, you might go with 7. But the Grizzlies only have 5, 6, 7 players. I'd like to know how many minutes these starters had, because I look 9 minutes to go in the game, the starting 5, they're in the game. With 2 minutes to go, the starting 5, they're in the game, and no one took a break. It's like, are these guys superhuman?
Here you go. Randolph 43, Prince 34, Gasol 43, Conley 42, Tony Allen, the other starter, had 23. Bayless had 22 off the bench. Pondexter 17 off the bench, and they did play 4 other guys. Actually, 4 other guys, but very limited minutes for Ed Davis, Darrell Arthur. But Arthur we saw with some pretty important baskets in the first round series for the Thunder, or for the Grizzlies, I should say. He played pretty well against the Clippers in a couple spots. Yeah,
he did, but he's actually an average player on his best day. But interesting, 48 minutes. I mean, you should get 35, 37 minutes, and 2 of their studs, 43. Actually, their top 3 players, 43, 43, 42 minutes. That is a lot of basketball playing, but they don't seem to fatigue. They really don't. So I give them a lot of credit. Tony Allen, of course, he was in foul trouble.
Part of it is because of the fact that they don't run up and down the floor very much, and they kind of take their good old sweet time. Maybe that's a great coaching strategy as well. We have to conserve energy, so we're going to slow teams down and we're going to play slow ourselves.
I'm not buying that argument, because it takes so much effort. Not that I would know personally, but it takes so much effort to bang bodies and to play defense.
Should we ask Amar'e Stoudemire?
Yeah, he wouldn't know either. So I think it has to do with the makeup of this team. And again, their starting 5, I am so I can't say it enough. I mean, as unimpressed with that trade, me and everyone else, I'm just disappointed that I just didn't see this coming. I mean, I respect what they're doing. Their starting 5 as good as anyone's. Their bench is weak, and I'm all about having guys. I mean, as an example, you have Manu Ginobili coming off the bench on a very deep, talented San Antonio Spurs team, and you have Pondexter and Arthur coming off the bench for the Grizzlies. Give me a break.
Big difference.
Huge difference. But as far as their starting 5, and the reason Tony Allen had limited minutes last night, he was in foul trouble. And I thought there were a couple of questionable calls, but again, that's home cooking, home court.
Well, that's the thing you worry about with a team that has a short bench is, number 1, injuries, but then the possibility of foul problems going into a particular series, or even a guy just not feeling well, like a Tim Duncan situation you had the other day in San Antonio, where you might have to rely on somebody that doesn't have the experience. You got to think that's a big disadvantage to the Grizzlies when that happens.
I look at the Thunder objectively, and I think, first of all, this team is not as good as they were a year ago, even when they had Russell Westbrook. Now, last year they were seeded 2. This year they're seeded 1, but no James Harden. They picked up Kevin Martin, who, to me, is a poor man's version of Steph Curry. The idea is he dies by the outside shot, and he's not nearly as good as Steph Curry, of course, who is. But no James Harden, no Russell Westbrook. Now they're on the road. It's 1 against 5, and because of the injuries that they've had, they're thin now. So, again, the Grizzlies are in a great spot.
They are. And going home, let me ask you, with regards to the opening line, you talk about value. We talk about being on the move early or against the move late. When that opening number comes out, it doesn't stick around very long. It gets hit very quickly. Game comes out, line goes up 10 o'clock at night, and unless you're the first guy in line or right there on your computer, that 3.5 didn't exist for many people, right?
Well, what happens is it all depends. It really does. But you want to be on the move early, lay 3.5 early, or take +5 late. You never want to lay the 5 late, even though that's the right side. Why would you compromise a half point and a half, and lay 10 cents too? It's a losing proposition long term. Having said that, people are doing it, and because they expect that the Grizzlies will win going away. But it depends, because these odds makers, especially now, you're talking about 2 games a day. 2 games a day. So if they're doing their job, and I always respect the odds makers, but I respect the market even more, the people driving the number, people betting limits and moving that number. It takes a lot of money to move. Sportsbooks do not want to move the number. They want that number to be sharp. Then they'll let you bet into it. They'll take 10% of the losses. But because if it opens 3.5 and closes 5.5, guess what? People will be buying back +5.5 late, and the sports books open themselves up to get middle to where they can lose both sides. If it falls 4 or 5, they lose all the money. And let us not forget that the sides are so tight that they're probably going to be within 5-10 points. And if you have 2 numbers to work with to get a big fat middle, the sports books get a little bit nervous. I never feel sorry for the sports books. They're whores. They really are. They really are. So if you can middle them, do it. I'm with you.
Go for it. But if they open themselves up to the middle, it's their own darn fault, right?
Exactly right.
But obviously they just want to get equal action on both sides. So if the number's 3.5 and they're not getting it, they have to move it.
Exactly.
Otherwise, they have way too much liability on the other side.
And see, on sides, that's why I do a lot with totals, because you don't get a lot of disparity. I mean, okay, so it's moved a point. On totals, you'll see a 1, 2, 3, 3.5, 4-point disparity from the opening number to the closing number, and there's a reason why they limit how much you can bet on totals compared to how much you can bet on sides. I bet 90% totals.
Right. What was the total last night in that particular game?
Well, it's interesting in the Memphis Grizzlies, because during the course of the regular season, 48 of their 80 games have gone under. They shattered the under. Only 32 games went over, and yet both games in this series, we would think, okay, half-court playoff basketball lends itself to the under, but the over has cashed out both times, if I'm not mistaken.
What was the total yesterday?
I'm guessing it was 80.
Yeah, 189 or something.
Yeah.
But there was 5 points in the final 2 seconds of the game.
Right.
We saw the very end of the game. Tony Allen did not have to go in for a dunk. He could have dribbled it out. He decided to go in for a dunk, and then they made a 3-point shot. Derek Fisher did at the buzzer. And you got to love it when I think it was Joey Crawford walks into the locker room, and you're going, oh, that made it 99-93. That's 192. I think it just went over the total.
Well, what's interesting
I didn't play the game on the total.
I didn't either, but what's interesting is as I was watching that, I'm thinking, okay, that probably hurt somebody because I'm always betting second halves. Okay, I didn't have any action on that game, but Derek Fisher just annoys me. All right, this is a guy who you cannot take him at his word. We're talking about a guy who
86, I think, in the second half was the total amount of points in the second half. So probably stayed under the second half total.
But the idea is Tony Allen probably should not have dunked the ball on a loose ball. Should have just ran out the clock. The fans were booing, but Derek Fisher, being the whore that he is, all right, he's always looking to pad his stats, so there's no defense. The game's over. 3 seconds to go. He steps up, and he really hustled to get there to pad his stats to take a wide-open 3. But that's Derek Fisher. Why am I upset with Derek Fisher?
He was 4 for 5 from 3 last night.
Well, and again, that's what's kind of annoying. But I mean, again, he's a one-trick pony. That's all he can do.
He had a good night last night.
He did have a good night, but he's a one-trick pony.
Right.
The only thing he can do is shoot threes and make free throws. So why you would foul him is beyond me. As I got done saying, I mean, you're saying he had a good game only because of what he did shooting the ball, but he cannot stop anybody. And let us not forget they lost the game on their home court. But Derek Fisher, the reason I'm not a big fan, same reason Mark Cuban is not a big fan. This is a guy who signed with the Dallas Mavericks because you notice he wears a big fat 6 on his jersey because he's going after his 6th championship, which again, look at me. I've won 5 NBA championships, so he didn't win anything without Kobe Bryant. So he wants to go to a team that has a shot at the title, so he goes to Dallas because they won the title a couple of years ago. But after signing with the Mavericks, and Mark Cuban did right by this guy, he gave him way more money than he was worth.
Right.
After a few short weeks in November, December, Fisher realized that this team sucks. I don't want to be on this team.
Right.
So he says, listen, Mark Cuban, Mr. Billionaire owner, I am a family man. First and foremost, I need to spend time with my family. Will you please opt out? And Mark Cuban, being the great owner, people love playing for this guy, he accommodated. A month later, Fisher signs with the team that went to the NBA Finals a year ago, Oklahoma City Thunder. So I laughed. I thought it was great. When the Thunder went to Dallas and Derek Fisher was playing, the reporters asked Cuban before the game, what are you going to do when they introduce Fisher? He says, me and 20,000 other fans will boo him. And that's not cool. It's pretty juvenile, but I agree. I was at home booing him too. I'm
sure his wife wasn't.
So
wait to get that paycheck.
I'm not a big Derek Fisher
Let's go to
fan.
the finals.
The guy is past it. But I will say that he is a good three-point shooter, so why would you... And the perfect example last night, the game's over. The game is over. You're down 10.
As Al Michaels says, it's never over until it's over.
Yeah. But with 3 seconds to go in the game, he runs to the three-point line. And to go from 10 to 7 to pad his stats. So you can tell me that, he was 4 for 5 shooting threes.
Well, really? He was 3 for 4, it would have mattered, I guess.
Yeah.
But doesn't every team need a instant offense kind of guy? A guy you can bring off the bench and say, go get me points, and I'll sacrifice your lack of defense because you can get me some production offensively.
Those guys are a dime a dozen. They're everywhere. He's one-dimensional. He's past it. He's an antique. He's slow. He was a liability on defense always, and especially now. I believe he's something like 37 years old, but, I mean, the one thing he can do is nail the three. You cannot leave the guy open. So just buyer beware. Right. We're going to keep things moving on the odds couple. My name is Scott Pritchard, professional sports bettor handicapper from Pritchard'sPicks.com. I'm joined by Brett Grant, the GM of KSHP. We're live and worldwide Vegas Video Network. It's time for Spin to Win. Big game in the NBA tonight. The Golden State Warriors, Game 2 at the San Antonio Spurs. The line is down to 7. Interesting how people only remember what happened most recently. Golden State Warriors dominated Game 1. Spin to Win has to do with you being objective. Emotions cloud judgment. Check your emotions at the door. I'm going to spin to win. Whichever team, excuse me, this show was starting to make me sick. I am forced to argue one side. Brett automatically has to take the other side.
You get the Warriors.
The Golden State Warriors. Okay. This is going to be a little more challenging than I thought. I'm a big sucker for value. Points mean more than opinions. These two teams there's a reason why the line opened 8.5, 8, 7.5, 7. All the money is coming in on Golden State. I respect the move. I'm not a big Golden State Warrior fan. My personal opinion is I'm not playing the game. If I were, I would be on the Spurs minus the points. How do you go from the Spurs being a 9.5-point favorite in Game 1? Yes, the Warriors played lights out. The Spurs and Greg Popovich will make the necessary adjustments. They were fortunate to win Game 1, the Spurs. Well, the Warriors, I have to sell it, so I'm going to sell it. The Warriors plus the points it presents some value simply because the Spurs are there to win the game, not cover the fat number. All the money has come in on Golden State. They dominated Game 1 on the road. They're peaking at the right time. They're hot. Klay Thompson, had he not fouled out, they would have won. Steph Curry, he's certainly not going to have 40-plus points like he did in Game 1. He doesn't have to, as long as Klay Thompson stays in the game, Jarrett Jack, as long as he steps up. This team, so many different ways they can beat you. And the thing that no one talks about with Golden State, compliments of Mark Jackson, as good as they are offensively, they play good, sound defense. Golden State plus the 7, see the cashier.
Can I get on your side with you? There's a stat I'm not sure a lot of people know about when it comes to the current state of the Golden State Warriors. Their last 10 games, they're 10-0 against the spread. 7-0 in the playoffs. They have not yet failed to cover the spread. And I got to sell the other side. And according to your zigzag theory, they're supposed to cover again. They're supposed to win the game, right?
Well, no, that's
they
not
lost
it at
the
all.
game.
They're
they
not
lost the
supposed to win.
game.
They're not
I know,
supposed
but they're
to
supposed
win
to cover
the game
the
at all.
spread.
Exactly.
And they would make this 11-0. And I got to sell the old guy, Manu Ginobili, coming off the bench,
who can't be coached,
chucking threes
from half
with 11 seconds on the shot clock. Well, okay, I'll give it my best shot. I'm only laying a touchdown, right? So I was laying
and
8.5, 9 points. I was laying 9, I think, in Game 1. So I'm getting a little couple of points extra. The one thing about Golden State is they do not win in San Antonio. So I got that going for me. And the Spurs did not play well in Game 1. We saw that there was the rust versus the rest. We say rust because they were creaky. Tim Duncan wasn't feeling well. I would hope that his system is feeling much better now. I've got Kawhi Leonard, who I love, as you mentioned, Ginobili, Parker, Duncan. Is Splitter going to play or not? Do we know what
he's questionable. Now, he didn't play the last 2 games.
Right.
He's questionable. They're starting center for the Spurs.
I think it's a little bit of an overlay, or what do we call it? We call it an overlay?
Overlay or an underlay.
Whichever it is, in favor of the Spurs. They should be still an 8.5 or 9-point favorite. Now I only have to lay 7. I think it's a good spot for the Spurs. But
so in your opinion, it's a bit of an underlay.
Yeah.
So I talked before about how the Warriors are peaking. They're playing their best basketball. 10-0 ATS against the spread. Very, very impressive, yet they've lost 30 consecutive times in San Antonio. It goes back to, well, they're going to lose tonight, the Warriors. It's just a matter of do they lose by less than 7 or more than 7.
Well, we'll see if the zigzag theory holds up at 9-1 against the spread so far.
Well, the zigzag theory is proven. It's documented. It doesn't mean you're going to win every time. It doesn't mean that you blindly bet it, but just know that it's a theory. Like
and if you don't like that side, then you just leave it alone. I'm not trying to force you into a spot, but in the other game, I think it might be more prevalent after what happened to Miami versus Chicago in Game 1. But back to this one real quick. Can Steph Curry play the kind of game he played in Game 1? Again, I don't think so either.
Well, I mean, the Spurs, again, Pop knows best. He's great with in-game adjustments, and we already saw that. Okay, are we going to see the Steph Curry that lit up the scoreboard with 22 third-quarter points, or are we going to see the Steph Curry that went 0 for 8 jump shots when Leonard, the 6'7 star player, second-year player from San Diego State, started to guard him? So, no, Curry, as good as he is, he's on the road. The Spurs will make the necessary adjustments, and I, at this point, have not played the game. I'm a dog player. If I were to play this game, I would be against the move. I would be on the Spurs, and I would look to steal the 6.5. I respect the fact that the line has moved from 8.5, 8, 7.5. Today it's 7. All the money's on Golden State. They're 10-0 ATS against the spread. My money would be on the Spurs. I look for a rout. I look for a blowout.
But you wouldn't play the Spurs at 7, but you would play them at 6.5.
I would consider, if I were to play it, I don't bet square numbers. If it's 7 everywhere, I'm not going to bet it. I'm looking to find if I have an opinion. And if I'm saying if I had to play it, I don't have an opinion.
Okay.
My personal opinion is 2 things have to happen for me to make a bet. A, I have to have a strong opinion, and 2, I have to get the best of it. So if it's 7 everywhere, I'm going to pass.
And when you say square, that's what you're saying. It's that number square meaning that 7 is everywhere.
It's common. And so that tells me that the odds makers are saying this is the right number. Now remember, it was 8.5, 8. And the betting market says that is a bit happy. So that's why it's moved to 7. But again, knowing that money has started to come in consistently on the Warriors, chances are it will continue to come in on Golden State. So, I mean, we're talking 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, tip-off tonight, Las Vegas time, I believe, is around 6:30, so a lot can happen. The most movement generally takes place the first 24 hours, the last 24 hours.
Okay.
And in basketball, when you have a 2-day window, it really comes down to the first couple 3 hours and the last 2 to 3 hours.
That's why we see, like in a Super Bowl, when the line's first posted, we have 2 weeks. We'll see a lot of movement early when the line's posted on Sunday night to Monday, and then really nothing until
exactly right.
Saturday night, Sunday before the game.
But, Brett, that's applicable in Sunday to Sunday. Regular season football, the first hour or two on Sunday night when the lines are posted at LVH and in the islands at Chris and Five Dimes and different places, you have activity. And then the day of, nothing. You don't have anything other than adverse weather forecast comes out or a key injury comes out. But the most action takes place the first hour or two, the opening line Sunday, a week before the games, and then, of course, game day, because that's when everyone's betting.
When you're playing in the NFL, just a quick question, are you making most of your plays 6-7 days before the game, or are you waiting until 6-7 hours before kickoff?
Well, this is a question we're going to ask Dink, because he's big on betting early. I don't like – I mean, I'll tend to bet late, but you want to be one or the other. So he's always on the move early. I tend to be against it late.
Okay.
So it's a good combination. It's just a matter of personal preference. He's animate in being first. He just wants to be first, and he's all about getting good numbers. And any sharp professional sports bettors, Lem Banker, my buddy,
sure.
86 years old, an icon, a living legend, told me the same thing 2 weeks ago when I was in his house interviewing him for a sports betting segment, that it's critically important. It's something I've been talking about for the last 4 years here on this network, The Odds Couple. If you do nothing else but get good numbers, you will always be in the game.
Makes sense.
You're listening to The Odds Couple on KSHP, AM 1400 Radio. My name is Scott Pritchard, professional sports bettor, Pritchard'sPicks.com. Brett Grant, GM of KSHP right here. We're live and worldwide on Vegas Video Network. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Have you ever thought you should be on the radio? Or have you considered doing an online video show or podcast? If so, now is your only chance to do both at the same time. KSHP and the Vegas Video Network have teamed up to provide the only multi-camera broadcast quality video and live radio simulcast in Las Vegas. And instead of having your show played at some ungodly hour, the KSHP Vegas Video Network partnership is producing shows that play from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. Imagine having your own radio show broadcasting to the entire Las Vegas Valley, and combine that with an online presence that is viewed in all 50 states and 150 countries, both live and on demand. This is a first and an outstanding opportunity to give voice to your business, your ideas, and your talent. If you'd like your own show on KSHP and the Vegas Video Network, contact us today at 221-1200. That's 221-1200.
Welcome back to The Odds Couple on KSHP, AM 1400 Radio. My name is Scott Pritchard, joined as always by Brett Grant. We're live worldwide, 10A to 11A Las Vegas time, Vegas Video Network. We would love for you to reach out to us. Email us at oddscouple@vegasvideonetwork.com. That's oddscouple@vegasvideonetwork.com. Also, we would love to hear your voice on our show. Go to our site, Vegas Video Network. On the right-hand side, a red bar. Click there. Middle of the page, you see it right there on the monitor. Green bar, hit start recording. Also, live chat up and running. Keep those comments coming, and also questions. We love to field live chat questions, whether it has to do with sports betting, sports, or you just disagree with everything that Brett says. How is that possible? That's impossible.
I don't think, that's impossible.
Now, if you do miss us live, you can still reach out to us by going to YouTunes. Is it YouTunes or YouTube?
YouTube,
iTunes,
there you go.
Vegas Video Network, Roku.
He's
Now,
creating new stuff.
I'm just coming up, I just do this to prove to you, friends, that there is no script. I know you'd never be able to figure that out. No teleprompter. Barack Obama could never do this show.
Oh, are you kidding me? No.
With no teleprompter?
First of all, he'd have his feet up on our desk. Which
well,
I don't
that's
like.
true. That's true.
Get your feet off of my desk, by the way.
Now, in sports, and namely sports betting, you don't have to look far to find frustration.
Oh.
Are you kidding me?
I'm still feeling it from last night's frustration with Are You Kidding Me with Craig Kimbrell, the closer extraordinaire for the Atlanta Braves. I had a play yesterday. It was Tuesday. I knew I was going to lose, and we did.
We're a superstitious bunch, aren't we?
I was one strike away from winning. The Atlanta Braves, I had the under in the game, which was 7.5. The Atlanta Braves led the game 4-3, 2 outs, bottom of the ninth inning. A backup catcher named Devin Mesoraco, who has a career .212 batting average, who has a grand total of 7 home runs in his career, steps to the plate last night and with 2 strikes hits a game-tying home run for the Cincinnati Reds to tie the game 4-4 and make it go over the total. And then Mr. Kimbrell decided he wasn't going to collect his wits about him properly. In steps the leadoff hitter, who I love just to say his name, without getting FCC violations, Sin-Soo Choo, who is on fire right now for the Reds. He promptly deposits a pitch over the fence as well. And the Braves, who were 1 strike away from victory, end up going home in defeat. So, Mr. Closer, are you kidding me?
That's a tough loss,
Ooh.
a bad beat. I mean, in regards to the 2 things happen. I mean, the total that you had on this show, and Brett, you've been on fire on this show, ATS against the spread, whether it's basketball total sides or baseball totals. You had the under 7.5, winner, chicken dinner, 2 outs, bases empty. The only way you can lose is if they score. Yeah, down to the last strike is if this no-name stiff jacks it out of the park. He did. But imagine having the Braves. The only way you can lose on the side, you're up 1. The only way you can lose is to give up 2 unprecedented consecutive runs.
At a big fat plus price as well.
Well, and with 2 outs, bases empty.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, the worst happened. And Chu, when he turned on that ball, no doubt, he hit it to the deepest part of the field, deep center.
There's no chance it wasn't going to leave the ballpark. As soon as it went off his bat, you went, yeah, it's gone. Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes you know that. By the way, before I get to your – well, no, go ahead. Go ahead with yours.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to mention the Angels lost to the Astros last night, so they continue to struggle. The Dodgers got beat again last night, so the L.A. teams continue.
I think it's only news if the Dodgers and Angels win at this late date.
Okay. But anytime you lose to the Astros, who now have 9 wins on the season, it's worth noting.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's very disappointing.
Because they only win 1.5 games a week. That's pretty much what they do.
I love the Dodgers. I love the Angels. Very disappointed in the start that they both have gotten off to. I will say, for my segment, Are You Kidding Me? Quincy Pondexter, a reserve role player, bench player for the Grizzlies. I love Memphis. I love their starting 5. Their bench, not so much. We're talking about a guy, you're in the heat of the moment, the battle. You don't get many minutes, okay? So when you're out there, I think Lionel Hollins is just saying, listen, just don't screw up. Just give Zach Randolph a breather. Give Marc Gasol a breather. Just don't screw anything up. That's all we're asking you to do. So Pondexter goes into the game. It's a war. It's a 3-point game. The last few seconds of the third quarter, Kevin Garnett grabs an inbounds pass 85 feet from the basket and throws up a crazy shot. Pondexter decides to go for the steal. Yeah, that's a high percentage shot. Risk-reward factor obviously did not equate into the equation. And 3-point shot. So Durant, who's automatic, does not miss from the free throw line. Instead of being down 3 going into the third quarter, chances are you're going to be down 6 on the road. Fortunately, Durant only made 2 out of 3, so you're within 5. But Quincy Pondexter, easy for me to say. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, Dexter, yeah. Well, you look at what the most egregious part about it is the fact that you fouled Kevin Durant, who never misses free throws. Yes, he missed 1, but he's automatic from the foul line. And these, I'll give the players credit. It bothered me. There was a basketball game in the NCAA, not in the tournament, but it was I think the Colonial Athletic Conference this year, where a team inbounded the ball at half court, and the other team had to foul. And the guy's at least he's a stride away from half court, and the guy commits the foul, and the player continues along. There's no chance. Obviously, his team's up by 1 point, and he was not going to shoot the ball, but because he felt contact, he decided to go ahead and shoot the ball, or attempt to shoot the ball, and they awarded 3 free throws. I think the officials have to say a little bit about intent in that spot, because now every offensive player ever, no matter where they're fouled, is just going to be doing one of these and say, I was shooting. And you're going to now, the precedent's been set, Scott.
Well,
They're
and
all
I think
shooting fouls now.
I think the player has to. It's a free roll for the player. He hears the whistle, even if there is no intent. He's automatically going to act because again, it's a free roll. I mean, if he doesn't get the free throw, then so be it. He has to at least try. Put it on the onus of the official, and they're not the sharpest tools in the shed. That's right. I said it. Bring back the replacement refs in the NFL already.
I think Tim's calling.
Tim Donahue.
He's calling.
But remember, he's no longer an official. So I have more respect for Tim today.
He was smart enough to get out of it.
Exactly. Never mind that he was forced out.
Is that a rule that needs to be changed, though, about intent? Because we know guys are not shooting shots at three-quarter court or half court when there's unless it's the end of the quarter or something like that, they're not shooting the ball.
It doesn't have to be. We have too many rules, too many laws. All right, that's why I'm in Vegas. It's the wild, wild west, and even then we have too many laws. So I say eliminate. We have too many rules. Do not put even more on the officials because it's subjective. But I would say players have some discipline. Don't be reaching in 75 feet from the basket, especially if the guy is a 90% free throw shooter. Quincy Pondexter, are you kidding me? We're going to keep things moving on the odds couple. Scott Pritchard, pritchardspicks.com, Brett Grant, GM at KSHP. This is the part of the show where we together put money into your pocket as we put you on the right side.
Well, as long as it's not Tuesday, I have a chance. So I'm going to give you a play here today. Interleague matchup in Milwaukee between the Texas Rangers and the Milwaukee Brewers. You have Derek Holland on the mound, who's 2-2 on the season against Kyle Loesch, who is 1-3 and been a little bit of a hard luck loser a couple times here for the Brewers. I think it's a good spot for the Rangers, Scott. A couple of reasons why. Number one, they are one of the best teams in baseball when playing under the lights. They are 16-6 so far this year when playing under the lights. Ironically, the Brewers are below 500 playing at night. The Brewers are below 500 playing on grass, which is not a good sign since they play at grass at home. And you've got to win at home in that spot. And the other thing the Rangers do, they're not playing real well. They're 4-6 in their last 10 games, but also so are the Brewers, 4-6. I think it's a couple of teams that are going, Brewers not playing very well, but I think the Rangers are in a little bit of a better spot. I'm going to get plus money with Derek Holland, who's been pitching better. His last time out, by the way, 8 innings, no earned runs allowed. I like the matchup here. I'm getting Holland at a plus price on the road in a good situation. I'll take the Texas Rangers plus the number today against the Brewers.
I like Brett Grant. He's a gentleman, a scholar, and he's a sharp handicapper. I like the fact that you're not afraid to, because these plays are documented on Vegas Video Network. Scott Whitney cracks the whip, man. Not only do we have to be compelling, entertaining, educational, a bit humorous, but he also wants us to pick winners. So Brett has been on fire,
isn't he?
We wouldn't have it any other way. We love Scott Whitney, his sidekick, his right-hand man, Jacob Cannon as well, who Jacob, again, I have to give a shout-out to Jacob. He had a birthday. We went out, had dinner for his birthday, and Jacob picked up the check.
Nice.
Are you kidding me?
Nice.
I love Jacob Cannon. I said, Jacob, for your anniversary, where are we going?
Exactly. He's got a lot of friends, doesn't he?
Yes,
My birthday, I'm buying dinner. Who's coming with me?
Yeah, it's his birthday, but I received the gift. I'll take it. All right. And so with Brett, I mean, last week he had the White Sox with the plus, winner, chicken dinner.
Right.
And today, going with Texas Rangers, Holland on the mound with a nice plus. My game yesterday in baseball, I bet a total right here on the odds couple. Easy winner. And so what we're looking at here, I'm 4-1 in my last 5 plays. Today I'm looking at the A's in Cleveland taking on the Indians. Griffin against Masterson. Whip factor, walks, hits per innings pitch, 1.21 versus 1.30. The over-under is 8.5, minus 15 on the under. My right side, under 8.5, minus the 15 cents. Winner, chicken dinner, under in the A's-Indians game. You're listening to the Odds Couple on Vegas Video Network. We're live and worldwide, and also KSHP AM 1400 radio.
Yeah, it should be. We didn't really talk about the other game. Bulls in Heat. What are your thoughts on that game?
Well, interesting, because game 1 in Miami, the Heat favored by 12. The Bulls won the game straight up zigzag. That means you would have to be, just like we talked yesterday, you asked me, and I said, well, I wasn't going to play the game, but if you were going to play the Knicks game, you'd have to be on the Knicks minus 5.5, 6 points. They won going away. Same way here. Now it's 12.5, the Heat at home taking on the Bulls. So after the Bulls won game 1, you might think, well, gosh, the Bulls are pretty good. But no, the line is 12.5. The early money has come in on the Miami Heat. It goes back to the zigzag theory, and the sports books will shade it one way or the other. You're listening to The Odds Couple. We're here Monday through Friday, 10A to 11A. For Brett Grant, my name is Scott Pritchard. Good luck and goodbye.